Young Ugandans are determined to take to the streets today to protest against corruption in the government, despite warnings from President Yoweri Museveni that they are playing with fire. And in an attempt to quash the protest, security forces yesterday surrounded the headquarters of the main opposition party, the National Unity Party. We'll bring you more clips of that as we proceed with the show.
Now, the police have also refused to authorize the march, but the protest leaders are adamant that they will proceed, citing their constitutional right to peaceful assembly. The situation is tense in Uganda, and it remains so. And we'll see, of course, how events will unfold today. Let's quickly share with you, of course, quick clips from Uganda before we get into this conversation.
Now, my question is, what right then do you have to seek to generate chaotic behavior? What right do you have? We are busy producing wealth. You are getting cheap food. Other people in the other parts of the world are starving. They are crying for hunger. And you here, you want to disturb us. You are playing with the fire because we cannot allow you to disturb us. Demonstrate, when you demonstrate in a place like Kampala, people are sitting on the roadside. Are you going to step in people's products? You are playing. Do not have such ideas in your head. If you want, contact Nakarema on a day when there is no Sunday, there's no traffic here in the center. At least we can go to Korora and talk nicely about whatever we want to talk about, but do not bring. Don't be tempted to bring chaos, step on people's products on the road. So we are.
Now joining us is the Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance, Uganda, Sarah Bireete. Good morning, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. I'm glad to be speaking to you on this TV Nigeria.
Great to have you. I mean, first question really would be, why have Ugandans chosen to play with fire?
Well, the Constitution of Uganda guarantees a right to citizens to demonstrate in Article 29 of the Constitution, and that is the replica of the International Bill of Rights. A right to protest, demonstrate, petition is an inherent right that the state does not grant, but should only facilitate its enjoyment by the citizens. Uganda, since the enactment of the 1995 Constitution, has had a turbulent, enjoyment of rights, especially right to demonstrate and protest under President Museveni. Where it usurped the constitutional powers that it should authorize or deny protests. This section was set aside by the Constitutional Court, which declared the right to protest, but can only provide security and regulate that enjoyment of right. The same section was reenacted under Section 8 of the Public Order Management Act. Under Section 8.
All right. We do seem to be struggling with a bit of your network, as we're missing bits and pieces of your words. We're going to go ahead and try again to see if it gets better. I mean, you've given the constitutional backing, the legal backing as to why the people of Uganda, like my colleague will say, are choosing to play with fire. They do have a right to protest as enshrined in the laws. But let's look at what the reality is in Uganda. In his speech attempting to dissuade young people from protesting, he talked about how Ugandans buy food relatively cheaper in Uganda than in other parts of the world, how they're not hungry. So what is the current reality like in Uganda? And why are the people, the young people in Uganda, displeased enough to want to hit the streets?
Well, the people of Uganda have been attempting to demonstrate over time or protest, but the police uses high-handedness to stop them. From yesterday, we have been seeing heavy deployment of military on the streets of Kampala. So the approach of government is to not allow any momentum in the country, because President Museveni knows that after 38 years in power, Ugandans are tired. But he uses the military and police and high-handedness to keep away the frustrations of Ugandans, and he cannot allow any momentum. Even when the cost fight corruption is something he's trying to do, he cannot allow citizens to get on the streets, because he knows that once the citizens are on the street, the demands will increase. The last time there was a protest in 2020 after the arrest of opposition leader Bobi Wine, about 100 people were killed on the streets of Kampala. So this time, we hope that the young people will be protected and will be allowed to carry on with their protests, because their demands are very clear.
Yeah, I mean, well, we hope that that's the case, but I'm sure there's a part of us who also understands that it is very possible that it might also lead to more violence, just like the last time. Can you share with us, if there is anybody who's leading this protest? Is Bobi Wine also playing a role in this particular protest, or is this simply just by the young people of Uganda? And also, has this been inspired by what we've seen in Kenya?
Yes, the inspiration comes from Kenya, but the young people are organizing this on their own, and Bobi Wine and his party are not involved. But the state suspects that they are involved, because one of the volunteer leaders of young people belongs to the National Unity Platform and has been seen wearing the attire of the National Unity Platform, the red cap. So when the state sees such things, yesterday they sieged the party of Bobi Wine. They arrested several leaders, and they did not allow them to carry on with their regular press conference and the political party activities. And I am sure that by midday today or so, Bobi Wine could be put under house arrest. There are barricades around town. There are roadblocks at all centers entering Kampala, but also Parliament has been sieged off. Nobody is allowed to access the premises of Parliament, and there's diversion of all traffic around Parliament of Uganda today. But the world should know that what are the demands of young people in Uganda. The young people have summarized their demands into 7. The first demand is for the Speaker of Parliament to resign. The Speaker has been sanctioned by the US, UK, and the United Arab Emirates over excessive corruption and the possible money laundering, because her properties have been frozen in these countries. They are also demanding for the resignation of the 4 commissioners who received the alleged service award that is not provided for in the law, totaling to 1.7 billion Uganda shillings. They are demanding for a reduction of size of parliament. Uganda has the 2nd highest parliament next to India, when India has a population of 600 billion and Uganda has a population of 45 million people. They are also demanding for resignation of members of parliament involved in corruption and a lifestyle audit for members of parliament, plus a reduction of salaries for parliament, and allowing Ugandans to freely enjoy their right to petition and demonstrate.
Can you paint a picture?
These are very realistic demands, and they are all constitutional. Yeah. And we are calling upon the government of Uganda and President Museveni in particular to stop usurping the functions of the state and hijacking the fundamental rights of Ugandans.
I want you to also share with us, when you talk about corruption in Uganda, what exactly are we talking about? How bad is it? And has there been any attempt to also curtail the level of corruption?
Well, the Inspector General of Government, who is the head of the institution charged with fighting corruption, has estimated our corruption to 10 trillion Uganda shillings. This is a fifth of our annual budget. So 20% of our budget is lost to corruption, according to the Inspector General of Government. This is endemic corruption. It shows that you cannot fully implement service delivery in the country when 20% of the budget is stolen by individuals. We have also had a slow fight against corruption where the regime protects its supporters whenever they are mentioned in corruption deals and only persecutes those that support opposition. So we've had go application of the law in the fight against corruption. This has made the vice, go to pandemic levels. We have a corruption pandemic in Uganda. I don't think that any country has corruption levels to the extent of Uganda. For any, bill or supplementary budget that is put on the floor of the House, half of the money is shared by MPs and the officers who process these budgets. It does not reach to the intended function of the people. And the climax of this was when 23 ministers were named in a saga of stealing iron sheets from Karamoja. Karamoja is the most impoverished region in Uganda, and at that time people were dying of hunger. A supplementary budget was passed to try to resettle the former cattle rustlers by helping them have shelter, stop the nomadic nature of their lives. Most of these iron sheets were stolen by cabinet members, including the vice president, prime minister, and several ministers, but only 3 ministers were charged in court. The rest were forgiven. And
I'm glad that you mentioned that, I'm really glad that you've mentioned the Karamoja incidents, the roofing sheet scandal, where we had about 26 ministers and about 31 legislators. And you've mentioned that of these this huge number of people who had to go to court, that only 3 were found guilty. If I heard you correctly, did you say only 3 were found guilty?
Yes, only 3 have been charged in court.
Okay, have been charged in court, not yet found guilty. Great. How would you say that the Ugandan judiciary, what is the strength of the Ugandan judiciary to bring people who have allegations of corruption to justice? In this fight against corruption, what is the role that Uganda's judiciary plays? And do the people in Uganda, the citizens of Uganda, have trust in their judiciary?
Well, the overstay of President Museveni for 38 years has led to the collapse of all institutions, including the judiciary. So the judiciary only functions when the executive wishes to function. If the executive does not wish it to function, then it's dead. So there is selective application of the law, there is selective functioning of the judiciary. If the regime wants to support us, then the judiciary will set them free. That's the nature of the dispensation of justice in Uganda.
Okay, and also let's talk about what the potential effects of this protest, should it happen, what it will be. We've seen that Uganda is a country where even for political parties to have meetings, they need to get permission from the police. We've seen a number of times where the police will not approve, and the police has said that for these protests, they're not going to give approval, even though the young people have said that they will go on regardless of the police approval. So how do you foresee that this will turn out? Are there fears that there might be people hurt? And is this something to consider, even as the young people still have decided to go ahead with the protest?
Well, obviously, many people will be hurt. So the crossroad for Uganda is either to overcome their fear and redeem their country, or to continue to be inflicted by fear and suffer under the dictatorship that cannot deliver services to the people. So that's the mark that we need to cross as a country. It's also an opportunity for President Museveni to redeem himself after 38 years of leadership. He claims to be a Democrat, but he acts contrary to what democratic leaders do. If he is indeed a Democrat, let him protect young people on the streets of Kampala today and allow them to push back against the pandemic of corruption that he is presiding over as a leader of Uganda.
All right. Well, we'll see how things turn out. There's obviously worries that, people might be hurt, if they go out with the protest. And of course, if you refer to the last protest that you mentioned, about 100 people lost their lives, in that last protest. So hopefully it doesn't turn out the same way this time. We'd like to speak with you again as things develop. And of course, would say all the best to Ugandans and to yourself as well. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for hosting me, and goodbye.